These days, more and more of us are aware of the importance of mental health. Apart from professional services, which if we need them, we can hopefully get access to, we know that there are things which are really good for us, like getting outdoors in nature. However, is the research that's being done into those areas, well, kind of barking up the wrong tree? No pun intended. I want to use this really good article to help unpack that. The article from the Lancet Psychiatry is titled "Engaging in Healthy Life Activities is Inherently Valuable." Link in the description. I will not remotely go through all the content of the article. I would encourage you to read it if you possibly can. However, I hope to give you the gist because I think this is really interesting. I do like the approach that the authors have taken. So from this paper, physical activity alongside interventions that address dimensions such as spirituality, art, social interaction, and nature is increasingly subjected to inquiry through randomized controlled trials. Now, randomized controlled trials, often thought of as a gold standard in some areas of research, which can allow us, amongst other things, to figure out whether there's simply correlation but not necessarily causation. Although we unequivocally acknowledge the significance of these life dimensions in fostering well-being, we must ponder whether the scientific scrutiny of every aspect of human existence is a rational approach to improving mental health care. Now, that's interesting. So in other words, the scientific method, I'm all for evidence-based medicine, by the way, but the scientific method, is this really what we should be focused on now when we kind of know that these things are good for us? Anyway, let's continue. One sentence in, because I've skipped a little bit. And oh, by the way, that I should add in here, I'll mention it so you get the gist of it, but not take you through all the research, partly because of time and partly because you may switch off. They're referring to some research which highlighted the importance of exercise in terms of mental health. Kind of not a surprise, but the effect was great. It was really important. And also, importantly, the researchers had great attendance. People stayed with the program, stayed in the group who were actually being exposed to this exercise. And low attendance rates are one of the issues when you attempt to look at these lifestyle areas when measuring the impact of them on mental health. We then, back to the article, can look at the past. Approximately 3 decades ago, a comparative study of mental health services across European nations concluded that all countries were grappling with the development of sustainable and effective mental health care. There is scant evidence that the situation has improved. Scant indeed, a point also made by the former National Institute of Mental Health Director Thomas Insel. And as evidenced by lengthy waiting lists, inadequate access to care for those with the greatest needs, and unsafe environments for both individuals with mental illnesses and healthcare professionals. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, things I don't think have improved at all, and they weren't great then, so they're not great now. Then we get a little bit, again, because I've skipped ahead, about randomized controlled trials. Randomized controlled trials operate on the null hypothesis, implying that there is no causal effect of the intervention. In other words, hypothesizing that this intervention will have no effect, the null hypothesis. If the null hypothesis is rejected, in other words, we reject that the intervention had no effect, it did, we inferred there's a causal effect of the intervention. In other words, then the inference is that, well, something did happen, and we think it was caused by that intervention, whatever it was. When we test aspects of active life in randomized clinical designs, we therefore hypothesize that these types of activities do not affect our mental well-being. So if they don't affect our mental well-being, then that null hypothesis was correct. There was no effect. We postulate that engaging in active aspects of life might be seen as inherently valuable and should not need testing. So this is the authors saying this now. So they're basically saying, in our opinion, we believe that engaging in these active aspects of life, like getting outdoors in nature, like exercise, might be seen as inherently valuable, and I'm going to suggest must be seen as inherently valuable and should not need testing. So we know it, so why test it, is what they're saying. Now you might initially think, well, so what? But let's go on. In the case of Wolf and colleagues, so this was a study about exercise, which showed that, in some ways, surprise, surprise, exercise is good for us. The intrinsic value of physical activity cannot be disputed. The reason that they're highlighting it is because the effect was great, and there was a high attendance rate, if I can phrase it that way. Often when you're looking at lifestyle things and trying to figure out whether there is an effect which is positive or negative, then one of the issues is keeping people involved. Low attendance, low adherence is common. And that means that, well, your data is statistically underpowered. We feel, again, the authors of this paper, we feel the focus should shift from questioning the causal effect of engaging in different activities, which together form an active life, to exploring ways to enhance and encourage participation in these activities. Absolutely, participation is what we should be doing. I couldn't agree more. So in other words, let's stop focusing on whether there is an effect and find a way to allow people to take part, to be aware of the importance of these activities, these things. So then we go on. The pertinent question shifts towards fostering environments that facilitate movement, participation, inclusion, and flourishing for individuals with diverse abilities. Thus, the remarkable 84% attendance rate, that was this trial, this study about the effect of exercise, 84% attendance rate, high, huge, remarkable, as they say, holds more significance than the effect size. So in other words, what they're saying, it's the fact that they got a lot of people along who stuck with it. That's significant. The effect size, well, that's great. Really pleased for the researchers, but now we know it, and we've kind of known it in different ways from different research. What we need to focus on is the fact that people attended such a high percentage. And we suggest, that we go on from the authors, we suggest that future studies consider whether attendance to interventions of which the inherent value has been established is prioritized above effect on symptoms. If we can now accept, without further inquiries, that engaging in activities of life, such as physical activity, being socially connected, or developing creativity, is inherently valuable to a good life, the question to research must be, how do we best organise a society where this is possible? Well, I think that's brilliant. I love that. So let me just go back a little bit. And we suggest that future studies consider whether attendance to interventions of which the inherent value has been established is prioritised above effect on symptoms. So what they're saying there, I believe, is that we know there is a positive effect, just as there are negative effects doing other things. So let's get the attendance up. Let's make sure that we understand how to have people attend. So future studies consider whether attendance to interventions of which the inherent value has been established is prioritised. In other words, in my opinion, if you have people attending, then when you do the study, you can tweak things. You can consider what enhances the effect. You can consider what is detrimental. You can refine, but you can't do that if you don't have enough people along. Or it's hard to do. It's hard to really infer from that study. So getting people along, ensuring they're there, that's the key. We know it's good for us, and if you want to keep on doing that, yeah, then fantastic, do it. But refine it, change some of the parameters here and there. But importantly, get the people along. At least that's my take on what they're saying. Then let's go back to this other bit again. So if we can now accept, without further inquiry, that engaging in activities of life, such as physical activity, being socially connected, or developing creativity is inherently valuable to a good life, the question to research must be, how do we best organise a society where this is possible? So activity, how do we encourage it? How do we give people access to it? Socially connected, what can we do to reverse this fragmentation that a lot of people feel and of course experience? Creativity, they mentioned art. Spirituality was also mentioned. How do we best organise a society where this is possible? And also, I would add, encouraged. And yes, let's continue with the research, but maybe the focus, or more of the focus, should be on the society, because we already kind of know what's good for us. And yet, things haven't improved over decades. The services, the ability to access professional help, it's falling apart in many areas. And so some of this stuff is prophylactic, and some of this stuff can also help considerably in lieu of those other things that we can't get access to. And societally, we have to recognise that there's a huge shortfall in the resource, and therefore, how can we allow people to help themselves? And also, how can we, I suppose, not exactly change radically society, but make it more obvious to society that being a good citizen and leading this good life is not just about us, it's about other people. So, less of the hate, more of the love, I suppose.